we're going to be talking all about unlocking growth with virtual assistants. Now, before we get started, what is a virtual assistant? A virtual assistant is somebody who doesn't work in the same area as you. Now, we personally source our virtual assistants. Also, we call them VAs. Don't get that confused with Veteran Affairs. If you have any relationship to the military, you may think of Veteran Affairs as virtual assistants, but those are two completely different things. So I use the term VA or virtual assistant for talking about sourcing help from people in the Philippines. We've been doing it for 4 years now, and it has grown our business more than most of the things that we've done in our business. Obviously, it is not the only thing that we've done, but it is definitely one of those things that has really helped us to leverage our time and leverage the way we've grown. 4 years ago, we actually hired our very first assistant. She is no longer with us because she ended up becoming a coach at some point in time. And so she grew her own business. And we were able to help her do that because we were able to give her skills and abilities. After that, we hired a full-time video editor. And that full-time video editor is still with us today. She's not on the call because she's working right now. She's actually editing all of Curtis's videos for his YouTube channel, which has helped him become the top agent for his realing group, XP, here in Idaho. So out of all the EXP agents here in Idaho, he's number one. And sometimes he flips to number two, but most of the time he's number one. And so we do that because we're able to put out content that resonates with our ideal clients. We're able to leverage somebody else's time and focus on what we're really good at, and then leverage their time and add that to our time so that way we can grow our business. If I were to sit here and try to go and edit videos, first of all, I get super frustrated because that is not how I function. And secondly, I'd probably give up before the video was done. And thirdly, it would be a crappy video. So by utilizing virtual assistants, we can now hire for where we have weaknesses, where we struggle, where we hate doing certain tasks. That's somebody else's love language. They love doing tasks like that. Like our virtual assistant who edits our videos loves editing videos. And so instead of us trying to struggle and grind and work more hours and stay up late trying to do that, we leverage somebody else. We have another virtual assistant where Curtis and I were sharing her, and she was doing some work for me and some work for Curtis, and she was sending out newsletters, handling all our social media, working with our client care and things like that. And now we've grown to the point where we've just hired a third virtual assistant, which he's actually here on this call right now. So you can actually see that he has a face, he has a name, he's a real human being. He's not AI, although we do leverage AI to supercharge his ability to work in our business. But throughout all of this journey, we've been able to grow consistently. In fact, we've doubled almost every single year since we hired virtual assistants. Now imagine for a second that if you were to hire a virtual assistant and you were to offload all those tasks on them and you could double your business every year for the next 4 years, where would that put you? Insane. That's everyone's dream. And so we do that, and yet we can still take vacations. We can still go into Maui for 2 full weeks. And guess what? Our virtual assistants worked while we were gone. And so we had a couple of little things we had to catch up on, but for the most part, everything ran smoothly without us. Newsletters still went out. Social media still went out. Follow-up still went out. Everything happened according to clockwork because we were able to delegate responsibilities and have that leverage in our business. So one of the things that I want to ask you is, what is your time worth? Now, most of the time, people actually have no idea how much their time is worth. And I have done this calculator for many years now. And this is a calculator that I use to help understand when we need to hire the next person. Because on a side note, I actually coach contractors on how to grow their business. And one of the things with growing them is hiring. And one of the ways to hire is through virtual assistants. And so one of the ways that we have to think about is, okay, if our ideal annual income is $250,000 and we want to take a few weeks of vacation, maybe a week for Christmas, a week for Thanksgiving, and a couple weeks vacation in the summertime, or maybe even just a spring trip and a fall trip, depending on our kids' school schedules, we now have 4 weeks of vacation that we're taking. And if we would like to work 4 days a week, which is usually what I try to work, and then a couple of hours a day, because we want to make sure we're going to the gym, and we want to make sure that we are spending time with our family and all of those stuff, our hourly rate is about $200 an hour. Now, obviously, if you're making way more than that in your construction business, your hourly rate is going to go up. And obviously, if you're not quite there yet, it's something that you should be there. And if you're not there, that's how much your time is worth, even though your business isn't reflecting that at the moment. And so just to take this rough number, if your time is worth over $200 an hour, there we go, then you need to start delegating some of those tasks. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to put in the chat, what are some of the tasks that you do right now that you would not pay somebody $200 an hour to do? Okay. Gotta go find the chat here. There we go. Social media posting. So what else would you not pay someone $200 an hour? Pretty much everything I do. Yeah, so why don't you hire a couple of VAs and then go retire? Seats, organizing emails and calendar. Yeah, so if you notice here, permitting, yep, there's a lot of things that can just easily be done. Social media, email follow-ups, bid prep, bid solicit, takeoffs, all of those things somebody else can do for you. Because if you're not willing to pay out $200 an hour for, then you need to stop paying yourself $200 an hour to do those tasks. What I want you to do after this call, in preparation for hiring a virtual assistant, is actually write down all of those things that you would not pay somebody to do, and that becomes your SOP list for a virtual assistant. In fact, that's exactly what Curtis and I have done every single time we've hired a VA. We've gone, okay, we're maxed out on time. We literally can't grow that anymore, grow our business anymore. So what do we need somebody to take off our plate? And we start brainstorming. Okay, I don't want to do social media anymore. I don't want to edit videos anymore. I don't want to create graphic designs anymore. I don't want to do email follow-up. I don't want to manage my email. I don't want to do all of these things. Somebody else can do it for me. And so when you think about that, think about what else that you're doing that somebody else can do for you. Now, there's a part 2 exercise that I'm actually going to get in towards the end, especially when I share with you, for all of you guys who've shown up, I'm going to share with you a toolbox that's going to make things so much easier. It's got all the SOPs and things that you'll need. But you want to think about, how can you offload your time? Because if your time is worth $200 an hour, then you better stop paying somebody $200 an hour. Before we go much further, I want to talk about the growth triangle. And if you've seen me talk at different conferences, if you've been in my groups, if you've seen something on social media, you've probably seen me talk about this before. But the basic idea is that every time we try to grow our business, we've got to move up the ladder. So if you're like most contractors, you start out as an employee of your own business and you own a job. You do the work, you do the estimating, you do the building, you do the closeout, you're the salesperson, you're the estimator, you are everything. You're the bookkeeper, you're wearing all the hats. As you start hiring people, you then move up the ladder to the management area. And that's where you now have to manage employees. And when you're in the management area, you're like, okay, I'm making a little bit more money, but typically most of your money is going back to paying for overhead. And so as you're hiring, you're in that management position. And then as you get more managers, okay, you have project managers managing your superintendents and your job sites and your foremans. You've got your operations manager that's managing all your other people. You've got your sales managers that's managing the marketing and the sales. You've got managers in place. And now you move up that ladder. So you're in that leadership role. And as you're in a leadership role, your business is now bigger. And so now you're making more money. And then at some point in time, we all want to retire. And so we become an investor. We either sell our business for a lot of money, or we stay on as a silent partner and pass it on to somebody else and collect a paycheck. And so we are more of a passive board of director type position. And that's where we like to make a lot of money. Here's where the problem lies. We constantly go up the ladder. We increase profits because we focus on the things that are above us. We focus on management skills. We focus on leadership skills. And so we move up the ladder. But when we pull ourselves back down to all of those employee tasks that we just named, all of the email management, they've actually done studies where most people check their email 97 times a day. And so if you think about how much time you're spending in email, if you think about how much time you're scrolling on social media, if you think about how much time you're just inputting data, or even the things that you're not doing, you probably should be doing, like collecting all the receipts from a job site and collecting all your job costing, or putting things together so that way you can easily take a snapshot and go, oh, this is where we're at on our financials. I can make this decision better. All of those things, if we are doing them, we're actually pulling ourselves back down into an employee level, and we're not making any money. In fact, you can't grow your business if you get stuck constantly pulling yourselves back into that employee role. What do our VAs do for us so that we can constantly be doubling our business every single year? Like I've mentioned some of these before, social media management is a huge one. In fact, what I do is I will take a post or something that I am thinking about, and I will talk into ChatGPT, which I'll show you how I do that in a minute, and I will just brain dump for a post. And then I send that to my virtual assistant, and he turns that into a beautiful sounding post and posts it to social media, and I never have to see it again. The way I also do that is with a content bot. And if you do take that step forward and hire a virtual assistant, then I will gift you my content bot for free, which has all of my wisdom, all of my ideal client profiles in it, what I do, how I do it, all my processes. And so when I tell ChatGPT, hey, write me a post about this, and I want to make sure it says that, it's not pulling from some random Joe Blow somewhere in the world's information. It's actually pulling from my information. And so therefore I can create posts very easily, and I can have my virtual assistant sound like me. In fact, most of my posts in the last week have all been written by my virtual assistant who's on the call right now, Dale. And he's done that through my content bot, which, like I said, you can get for free by signing up for a VA when you're ready for it. Next one is graphic design. I've talked about that, and video editing. This morning, updated my banner for my Facebook page and things like that. Like those little things that need to happen to help my branding, but I don't have time to do them. I'm busy. So therefore, I offload that and delegate those tasks to somebody else. Blogging and SEO. One of Curtis's VAs is doing all of his blogging and formatting it all and making sure all the keywords are there and the FAQs are there and the H1, H2, H3s are there and getting them all so that they can rank on Google for SEO. In fact, he has a bot that he's created with his own voice and his ideas and his videos. And so that way, when she's creating this, it's not coming from ChatGPT, it's actually coming from him and making it sound like he wrote the blog, even though it's his virtual assistant. Data entry, paperwork, filing, receipts. I don't file receipts. We just send them to our VA and she puts them where they need to go. So we don't have to think about that. Then when tax season comes, well, guess what? 90% of the work is done for us and we don't have to think about something or looking for something that we did months ago. Weekly newsletters is huge. And I want to stop on this one for just a minute, because one of the things that we have to think about when we are hiring for a virtual assistant or for anybody in our business is we have to think about, how can this person make me money? So if you're hiring a superintendent, you've got to think about, okay, if I have a superintendent on this job, how am I going to make money to not just pay for the superintendent, but also to grow my business? If I hire a virtual assistant and all I do is give them grunt work that doesn't push the needle in my business, and I go and take a vacation for the next year, I don't have the systems in place to grow my business. There has to be something that happens every time you spend money to then make money back. And that's called leverage. That's called growing your business. That's called creating assets for your business. And so when we were first training one of our virtual assistants, there was a few jobs that we gave her that she just was not very good at. And we could see that, okay, this is not going to work. Those are not your skill sets. Let's see what are your skill sets. So one of the things that we gave her was the newsletter. And she started nailing the newsletter every single week. And it was awesome. And you know what happened is every single week in the course of a month, Curtis was getting 1 to 2 reach outs strictly from his newsletter, which means that he was making money for a newsletter she wrote. Now you can see that those newsletters, even though maybe it only took her 5 hours a week to do, those newsletters paid for her position. Obviously, she does a lot of other things with that, but we made sure that we always give our virtual assistants things that are going to generate revenue. What is it that's going to make our business money? So that way, when we hire them, it's actually going to have a return on investment or an ROI for that investment that we're going to take versus just, oh yeah, I do like all these like random tasks and I don't know if they make money. That's not how you actually hire someone. So we got to make sure that we do that. And then secondly, client care, sending gifts, sending thank you cards, sending birthday messages. These are things that they're nice to do, but do you actually do them? Because if you're not, you should be doing them. And if you don't have time, this is how you can actually free up your time. Scheduling and appointments and follow-up, all of that can be done, and we use them for all of that. So let's move on to the next one. So how do you actually hire a VA? So first of all, we've got to identify the tasks that we need to offload onto somebody else. What is it that we want them to do? Now you have to keep in mind that if you were to go hire a project manager who's really good at organizing, scheduling, and managing projects, and then you also wanted them to go file paperwork and post to social media and to do admin type works, you're now having one person wear two different hats. And so you want to think about what are the tasks that are kind of clumped together that make sense for someone to do. Just because they're a virtual assistant doesn't mean that they can wear 101 hats. And that's some of the things that we did early on when we hired virtual assistants is we gave them tasks that required multiple skill levels that even we didn't have. Most people have 1 to 2 things that they can do really well, or 1 to 2 categories of types of work that they can do really well. But some people just may not be cut out for certain things. And so if you want somebody who's going to be able to manage and handle a lot of different projects and wear a lot of different hats, then you may need to hire 2 virtual assistants. So one can do the filing the paperwork and doing the social media posting and doing the video editing, because the video editor is not going to be a good project manager and vice versa. So you want to first brain dump and think about all the tasks that you're going to be paying somebody to do, and then think, okay, what are the skill levels here that need to be happening? Then secondly, you want to hire your first VA, and you do that through systems, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And then third is you free up your time, which is how we're going to create a business and grow it. Now, the reason we started using virtual assistants is because it is very expensive to hire people in the United States. By the time you pay for workers' comp, by the time you pay for taxes, by the time you pay for all these things, your overhead goes through the roof. And then trying to find somebody in your area who you can actually hire is even more of a challenge. And so by hiring a virtual assistant, now I just threw this number out there based off of what I would have paid for somebody US based in my hometown versus what I pay my virtual assistants. I don't know if this is an actual statistic or not, but this is just from my experience. They typically cost us about 75% less than what we would pay a US-based employee. And the cool thing is that they actually work my hours. So Dale, who's here on the call, he actually starts at 5 a.m. my time. Actually, because of the time change, he now starts at 6 a.m. my time. But because the Philippines doesn't have daylight savings. So because I work early in the morning, and so therefore I need him to be working early in the morning. And so that was part of the agreement that we had on our interview. I'm like, can you work my hours? Can you work when I'm working? And then you can sleep when I'm sleeping. And he's like, yep, no problem. And so that's how I can get stuff done. We go back and forth all day long. It frees up so much time because I'm like, hey, here's a ton of tasks. And I get all of those tasks. We go back and forth. I make sure I'm approving the things that need to be approved. And then I go hang out with my kids. I do breakfast with them. I homeschool them. I go on a field trip with them. And then I pop back on in the afternoon and I check in on what he's done. He's probably got some questions. I answer them. And meanwhile, I'm with my kids and he's working. And so this is the beauty about having a virtual assistant. The other thing that you want to think about is pairing all the systems and processes ahead of time. We do that a couple of different ways. First of all, as a thank you for staying on this call, at the very last slide, I have a link about the toolbox that you can get. I know I sent it down in the email, not the link, but just telling you guys that as a thank you for showing up, that you can get that toolbox, and it has all the SOPs and everything that you could actually offload to a virtual assistant. I think there's like 100 tasks that you could offload to a virtual assistant. As you can see, I only need like 8 or 9 of them. I'll probably be hiring a virtual assistant in the next couple of months, because as I free up my time, I now can grow faster and easier, and therefore I need more things done and more things off my plate so I can then continue to grow my business. The couple of the things that we do is when we prepare systems and the processes ahead of time, we actually have a tech stack that we utilize, which I have on one of the slides. Like I mentioned, I don't hire a VA for multiple roles that require different skill sets. So this is where I come down to exercise number 2, because I get the excuse when I talk to people about VAs or I talk to people about hiring, and they're like, yeah, but I don't know if I can afford one. And I make them write down all of the tasks that are revenue generating activities that you'll do now that your time is freed up. And so when you think about, okay, what could I be doing right now if I wasn't doing all these small tasks? If I wasn't on social media trying to post and figure out what to post, if I wasn't doing email management and checking my email 97 times a day, if I wasn't filing paperwork, if I wasn't submitting permits, if I wasn't following up with subcontractors all the time to make sure that they're going to be on the job doing the scope of work that they said that they could do on time, if I'm not doing all that, what would I do with my time? And if you can think about what you can do with your time, and you can think about all those things that would help you double or even triple your business, you now could probably hire 5 VAs based off of that list. I know people that I've done this exercise with, they literally come up with so many different activities that they can do. And then it's like, okay, let's start going. Let's start growing. Here's my tech stack. This is how I actually organize all their stuff. First of all, I use Asana for project management. I have lists in there of like, here's the things that I want to post, here's the tasks that I need to do, here's random tasks. I have all of that listed out. So that way we're always staying on topic. And anytime they need to bounce something back to me, they just tag me in it. And then it takes me 5 minutes to go through all the things they've tagged me in, review it, give some feedback, make a couple comments, and then I move on. This is the exact framework that Dan Martell talks about in his Buy Back His Time book, when he's like, okay, I call it the 10-80-10 is what he calls it. And it's 10% is where you're going to give them the task. 80% is where they're going to do most of the tasks. So they're up to 90% now. And then that last 10% is where you jump back in and finalize it, make sure it all looks good, and you're off to the races. And so that's exactly the approach that I take with my virtual assistant. Is I'm like, okay, this is what I want. This is what I need. I'll put that task in Asana. He does the whole task, 90% of it, or the next 80% of it. So we're at 90% done. And then I come in at that very end and finish it up, make sure it's approved, put the bow on it, double check it, and we're all good. The next thing I do is Slack. Slack is very convenient. You can also use WhatsApp, but I like to use Slack because I like to have different categories for stuff, especially like on job sites. You can have addresses for different Slack channels. And so you can then organize your conversations, and it's not just on one long stream of conversation. I use Loom. I don't have a meeting every single day with my VA. However, I talk with him every single day via Slack and via Loom. Loom is a screen recording, and I use this for training. So anytime that I'm reviewing something, I turn on Loom and I'm like, hey, I'm reviewing these thumbnails that you made for me. Okay, I like this. I don't like that. Change this color. Make sure that matches here. Do this, do that. Okay, whatever. And then I just send him the Loom video. It saves me hours of time instead of just typing out all my feedback and hoping that he understands what I'm trying to say. When I'm taking something visual and turn it into a written word, it can get all messed up, even for fully English speaking people. And they do speak English very well, but it is not their first language. And so you do have to take that into consideration. Handwritten, right? It's personal notes to your clients. And so one of the things that Curtis's VA does is she sends a thank you note to people who have just closed on a house, or they're coming up on their 1-year anniversary for their house. And so she will write them a note and send it via handwritten. So therefore it looks handwritten, it looks very personal, and yet Curtis never touched it. And it completely was sent without her. The next thing that we use is ChatGPT, and we use ChatGPT a lot. When we talk about ChatGPT, I don't just tell them to go and say, hey, go search this up in ChatGPT, and they go do whatever in ChatGPT. It's here's my bot, here's the voice that I've programmed into that, and then now they can go create the content that needs to be created using my voice. I use Descript and CapCut for all my video editing. Now, this is not the highly edited YouTube videos that Curtis uses. She uses Adobe Premiere, I think, but that's her program and she knows how to work it. But as far as like all my other VAs, both Curtis's other VA and my VA, we use Descript and CapCut. So that's how we can crank out videos, make them sound great, have all the captions on there, have all the editing on there. And yet it is so easy that I was able to train Dale in a day, an hour, maybe on both of those. He'd used CapCut. He hadn't used Descript yet. We use Canva for graphic design. Use Google Workspace because that's a way to share files and stuff. And then the large video files, we also use Dropbox. It's easy to upload to Dropbox and that as far as like video files go. Some of the other things that some people use, we don't use them just because we have an ongoing conversation with our virtual assistants all the time, but is a screenshot monitor. And so you can actually go have a screenshot monitor and watch every single thing that your virtual assistant does so you can make sure that they're actually working when you want them to work. My virtual assistant produces so much for me, and I can see that he's working because of the amount of things that he's presenting to me, having me get approval on and things like that. I don't actually need to monitor his work in that regards. So how do you actually get a virtual assistant? So Curtis and I got our virtual assistants 4 years ago by working with Justin Nelson, who started Sphere Rocket. You can see us there at one of his conferences. We've been to many of his masterminds. He has put on some of the best masterminds and the best workshops that I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of them, and some are done tastefully, and some are not. Has actually created an entire company for VAs. And like I said, we've sourced all our VAs from them for the past 4 years, so that way we can grow our business and they do what they do best, which is source VAs. There should be popping up a link in the chat soon. If not, you've also got it in your email, but it's a link to sign up for a call so that way you can hire your first or multiple virtual assistants. So right now I actually have on a call Mike Nelson. And so Mike actually is going to walk through kind of what that process looks like for signing up for a virtual assistant and what's going to happen after you make that call.
Yeah, oh, thank you so much. Great job, Liz. Like, really, there's a lot of meat in behind what she just put on there as far as this kind of understanding your plan. I'm a huge Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time. If you haven't read that book, probably needs to be the very next book that you read. He's nailed it with this leverage piece. I look at any successful business owners that at least have a healthy family, that are healthy in their mindset and everything. There's usually leverage in place, right? We can only take on so much we can do, and we also hit a ceiling at some point in time as well. Without the leverage piece. So I want to kind of take you through a little bit of the journey, and I just kind of ask you to imagine, like, what does it look like in your day if you show up at work? Your email's already been prioritized for you, yet your focus needs to be on instead of 150 emails when you come in the morning. What does it look like when you know your priorities in your calendar because it's completely cleaned up? What does it look like when you basically are ready to go with your CRM and newsletters have already gone out and inputs coming back in? What does it look like when somebody's already created social media posts for you? Just think of the tasks that you're doing. Liz is just spot on with that. It's a huge exercise to take. What is your hourly worth? What is your hourly worth? And then ask yourself that question. Should I be writing this handwritten card, right? Should I be doing certain tasks? And the answer is usually no, because you'd never pay somebody $200 an hour to do that. But yet we fool ourselves into, well, I can take that. So let me take you through a little bit of the process, specifically with Sphere Rocket, just a little history of us. 5 years in, we have had over 3,900 clients, and we have sourced over 8,000 VAs. So we like to think we're pretty good at what we do. Very well known in the community of the Philippines. We're very specific to the Philippines, and the reason behind that is it's strategic. They have really good English, so we're not dealing with a lot of that type of issue. Limitations are we don't have a lot of Spanish speakers, right? So if some of you are like, hey, I need to have Spanish speakers, that will be a little bit of a limitation for us, but yet they're really great on the English side of things. Other things that are there is our influence in that area. When you hire 8,000 people, you become sort of a go-to or a employment opportunity. I want you also to change kind of your thinking from a US base to a Philippines base. Understand Philippines really enjoy and they aspire to be a virtual assistant. Now that sounds a little bit weird, but they do. And here's why. They have to take usually an hour and a half to 2 hour public transportation into a corporate office in Manila, let's say. Then they work an 8 hour day, and then they got to take that 2 hour bus ride back. they're put in about 12-hour days on the corporate side of the world. So for them to be able to work an 8-hour day, 9-hour day, whatever you choose to do with them, is tremendous to them because they're also multi-family, multi-generational. Right? They want to be with their family as much as they can. So it's a huge benefit for them. A lot of their parents actually want them to become VA. So it's a very prominent job for them, right? Shall we say? So the path that we normally take is the following. We are not the typical company that says, hey, I've got 100 VAs. I'm going to let you pick one of them that works for us. You get what you get. That's not what we do. We're very specific to what you need. We go do headhunting. We get about 150 applications for every job post that one of you were to put out there. We do a 4-tier process with that. We scrape it down to from the resume review to a preliminary interview to then a tech check, right? What do you sometimes see in some of the different countries is, hey, my internet's down, I lost power, right? Those type of things. We're making sure that all of those things are up to snuff for what you need. So that's the process. Then you get to interview 3 to 5 candidates that we bring to the table. We don't know your culture, right? Your company culture, things like that. So we want you to feel comfortable with the person that you hire. It's not me just saying, hey, Joe's sitting on the bench here. Joe's a good video editor. Hey, Joe, here you go, Liz, right? I hope you like Joe. Like, he's just got good video editing skills. We want this to be a hiring process just like you would do in the US. We want you to have choices to be able to do that. So what we normally do is we will do like a consult with you to understand your business a little bit better. That's free. There's no hard sales. There's nothing like that. We just want to have a consultation with you with our team. Our team will make sure that a VA is a good fit for you. Where would be a good VA for you? Like you might be thinking social media manager, and after discussing it, an executive admin might be right where you want to start, right? Somebody who can do your invoicing, somebody who can do your receipts, somebody who can clean your email up, somebody who can help you write your systems and processes, right? Those type of things may be where you go, right? Those are just the conversations we like to have on the front end to make sure that we're on the same page. Then you will meet with what you get as a client success manager. Every one of our clients get a client success manager. That client success manager is a former business owner in the United States. They will have conversations with you like business owners and integrating and implementing the VA into your business. You get to meet them on that first call once we do business together. And then you're going to build out that job description so we can go out and do the headhunting. So the onboarding team, which for us in the Philippines, will be meeting with you on that call to basically really get a good task list from you. So Liz mentioned earlier, it'd be really helpful to know what you want and expect out of somebody that you're going to hire. We will take that information, and that is exactly how we go source 150 resumes, whittle it down to 3 to 7. So you're getting the top of the top is what it boils down to. Here's what's unique about this. If I had 100 VAs that work directly for me and I just gave them to you, I'm not necessarily able to provide you with fresh talent that might be leaving the corporate world. That's what we're looking for sometimes is, hey, like this person just used to be a executive admin for the CEO of Microsoft in Manila. Microsoft let her go, whatever happened, we're able to go find talent like that, if you will. Most of these people in the Philippines have bachelor degrees as well. Just a little side nugget there. So that's pretty cool. And I want you to know that they're very loyal and they're very appreciative to work for you all. It's just a different mentality, right? Over here in the US sometimes, and again, we have US people, so I'm not here to say that we shouldn't hire US. That's not it at all. I think there's just right fit and right times for different hires, CEO level, executive level, higher management level, 100%. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm in the US. That's why I'm working with SphereRocket. But yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done because again, if you're going to pay somebody 8, 9, 10, 11 bucks an hour in the US, it's a different mindset, let's just say. Philippines really have a great appreciation. The average pay is about 4 to 5 bucks an hour. So for some of you that are like, oh my gosh, that's like you're doing them dirty. It's like, no, actually their average minimum wage there's about $1.32 an hour or something like that. So it's a really good income for them. I've got SOP, like Liz mentioned, we'll get you all of those things, top 50 tasks, things like that. So Liz, I feel like I've talked a lot. So yeah, and we can do international for sure. Yeah, thanks for that, James, with the Filipinos in New Zealand. So happy to talk about anything, everything.
So just as we mentioned that we do sign up for a virtual assistant with SphereRocket, I want to make sure that you also have the things that have worked for us. And one of that is call it our content bot, but it's basically our free training on how to train ChatGPT to sound like us. Sounds different than a New Yorker who sounds different from somebody from California. Even here in the US, we have different styles, different dialects. We speak differently. We use different words. We have different technobabble on our job sites. We all have these different things. And so if we were to just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write a post about whatever, it would come up with something that sounds like ChatGPT, and we don't want our content to be like that. And the things that we have our guys do or our virtual assistants do is content and is social media. When you do get a VA, you can have the free training for that. The other thing too that I wanted to make sure that you all got was, and this is also going to land in your inbox, but it's also going to be in the chat. So make sure you look in the chat for this. But this is a thank you for just coming here, learning, figuring out where you can grow your business. And all you got to do is sign in the little box, and it'll give you the 900 questions to ask your executive assistant. It'll give you your bookkeeper task list, client care, and all of those things that go in that you'll need for hiring a virtual assistant. So we're going to drop that chat here. Perfect. It just dropped in the link or in the chat. James says that there's a lot of Filipinos here in New Zealand, great workers with a great attitude. Yeah, people that we work with, they're super humble. They're super easy to give feedback to. If you make a mistake, they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then they never make the mistake again. Like you teach them very easily. Do you give them access to your accounts? Well, I use LastPass for all of my passwords. And so that way I can share that with them. A couple of things, LastPass won't work. And so I just give them my login. So it's not that big of a deal, but they're pretty trustworthy. So I just give them the LastPass.
Yeah, it depends on what you're looking at, right? Like, yeah, your bank accounts and stuff like that, you'd have to use kind of some common sense on business controls for that type of stuff. But for somebody to log into your Gmail, it's probably cool. Everything's about LastPass, like Liz mentioned, where you can control the access, because the last thing you want to do too is give them 152 passwords and then they decide to part ways, or you decide to part ways with them, and now you're like, oh my gosh, I have to change 152 passwords. That's insane. LastPass will help you with that process. So there's some best business practices. One of the things we give you as part of that onboarding process is we give you ramp up. Here's a 30-day best practices to bring your VA on board. We don't just go, here's your VA, good luck, because our goal for you is to have a VA for life. This isn't just a Mike gave me a VA and now he wants to pull them back and sign them to another customer. You have the relationship with that VA. We want that VA, just like Liz and them to do, is to grow with your company. Maybe they're even management material. Now that person begins to do the hiring for Liz and them on different things. The other thing that I want to talk about that I think was really important, Liz said before too, is they're not robots. Like I ask you, like Liz, are you great at video editing and operations? Probably not, right? You're probably really great at operations. But if I stuck video editing in front of you, you'd be like, I can do it. I'll do it, but it's not going to be great. It's the same thing here. You'll want very specialized. Think about this, $4 an hour, specialty. You're going to get a lot better video editor if you just hire a video editor at $4 an hour. Right? Then if you said, like, I'm going to hire an admin and I'm going to make them do 6 different jobs just so I can only spend $4 an hour, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck when you hire somebody to specialize right into a thing. I always like to say left brain, right brain. Left brain are very operationally minded, very project management minded. Right brain is very creative minded. So again, if you try to cross those 2 lanes over, it gets a little bit messy because left brain doesn't think like right brain and vice versa.
So basically the steps from here is to book a call and just see what it would look like to get a virtual assistant in your business. Like, who would that be? Would it be an executive admin? Would it be a video editor? Would it be a social media manager? I literally keep one guy busy 40 hours a week managing social media, prepping posts, creating carousels, commenting on people's posts, deleting posts that are inappropriate. All of that is time that I don't have to do. And so my quality of work goes up because I am not pulled in 101 directions, and my business has a better branding overall because now I don't have all these random comments where there's swear words. I seriously get the worst swear words on my posts, and they'll sit there for weeks if it's up to me. And so now that I have someone, they go through and they clean all that up. So that way my brand and my online presence and my social media and all of that is at a now higher professional level. And so not only am I utilizing his 40 hours for upping my brand and my business, but I'm also able to free up my time to then grow my business. And so it's a win-win situation there. Does anybody else have any questions before we jump off?
Let me just throw this out there and then let's open it up for Q&A, right? Here's who we are and who we are not. We're not a per project type business model. So please go use Fiverr, go do some of those things. So we're not here to say like, hey, I just need somebody for 10 hours to build my website and that's all I need. That's not our model. Our model is to provide you with an assistant or support that can grow with your business. What we also are about 20 hours a week of needed work. We're not hiring people for 2 hours a week. It's messy between they're going to want to work for 22 people if you're only hiring them for 2 hours a week. And that gets real messy with, we're never here for the 2 hours that I need, stuff like that. So just understand limitations for us. because we think it's in the best interest of the business owner and the model that we have. About 20 hours worth of work a week needed minimum, ideally 40, just like us. They're still going to need to be able to feed the family, so they will work some other jobs if we're only doing 20, and that's okay as long as they're committed to the time slot that you've allocated to them and they're providing you the hours they need. And then also just not necessarily a project-based things. We do have some interns we could use on project-based if you became a client, like if you needed somebody to import 10,000 pages of data, right, into something, we can pay an intern like $2 an hour, right, to do data and data stuff like that. But it wouldn't just be a specific job we would hire for on a project basis. Okay, hopefully that helps.
One of the things that I want to add to that before I go to James's question is I personally like to hire somebody full-time for me only. I actually don't want them to split time because I want them to be loyal to me and I want that relationship. So when I was going through and looking at a couple, interviewing a few people, one of them had another job and she was like, yeah, I'm going to work that job 4 hours and you for 5 hours or however long you want. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work for me. That was not the cultural fit that I wanted because I wanted somebody to be there, even if I don't have work for them, on call for me. So I have a list of tasks that are things that, hey, if you're bored and I don't have anything for you to do, you're going to do these tasks. And then I have the back and forth. Yes, that looks good. Okay, post that. Okay, do this. And we're constantly in that dialogue. But I want them available for, it's technically 9 hours because we do 8 hours plus an hour unpaid like lunch or break in the middle, which is their middle of the night. So they work 8 hours every single day for me. And we go back and forth. We say good morning in the morning. We say have a great weekend on Friday afternoons. I want them to be my employee, even though they are just an independent contractor legally according to the US employment terms. That's what I like to do. And if you can't think of tasks that'll fill 40 hours a week, go think of all the things that you could do if you could free up 40 hours of your week to go grow your business. Even if they only work 20 hours a week, but you had them scheduled for 40 and you paid them for 40, it'd be worth it for you to be able to go have these meetings with people and to be able to build the relationships and go to BNI meetings because you're not doing paperwork and look at your job costing and see like, wow, I'm not making enough money. I need to charge more. And that data is going to help you grow your business more than micromanaging their 40 hours a week. So I have mine work for 40 hours a week and that's what I pay them. And they produce a lot of work for me and they help me grow my business. So going to James's question, what size business do you generally work with? So we hired our first virtual assistant before our business was probably making 100 grand a year in revenue. It was pretty small, but we knew we were at that ceiling where we could not work anymore without hiring somebody. And going and hiring someone for a revenue that was not very high, but hiring somebody US based was impossible. But hiring somebody from the Philippines was like, yeah, we could do this. Let's free up our time and let's grow. So that's how we've been able to double our business because we've done this before his book came out, but we literally have bought back time again and again and again. Like Dan Martell says, you've got to focus your time on, okay, what is it that I can do to grow my business? And what is it that's pulling me down to $10 to $15 an hour tasks? And I'm not willing to pay somebody $200 an hour for. I would go through those exercises. Exercise number 1, write down the list of everything that you need to offload off your plate, even the small little tiny tasks. Like I have them taking transcripts from like a call like this, and he's going to go organize that content for me. And maybe it's only going to take me 15 minutes, but here's how my brain works as a business owner. I'm like, oh yeah, that'll only take me 15 minutes. And then I go into my Google Drive to go do this or whatever. And then I see this that I need to do. So then I get distracted doing this thing. And then I get a text message. And so I get distracted over here. And that one task that should have only taken 15 minutes, all of a sudden swelled to an hour. And now my time's gone. So with having a VA who can focus and it's like doing this, then doing this, then doing this, and they just tung, 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 and get everything off your list. And you're like, huh, yeah. And I didn't have to get myself distracted with the 101 things going on in my business. So
can I also add this in too? Think about your personal life too. It's not just about your business. What are repetitive tasks that you do in your personal life? Maybe it's ordering something every week. Like I'm just being silly, but paper towels, right? Like I know I got to order paper towels every week. I don't just, I'm being goofy, but my point is think of those repetitive tasks or research projects you can give to them. Hey, I'm thinking about going to Malaysia or Indonesia. Somebody go write me a report on which ones would be pros and cons, right? I'm being silly, but you get my point is think about personal tasks that they could take off your plate too. It doesn't all have to be business.
So, Mike, are there kind of a range where people get to a certain point and they should hire their first VA as far as their like size of business?
No, the only thing we use caution on is like you're a solopreneur and you want to bring on a social media manager, a video editor, and an executive admin all at once. You're going to overwhelm yourself. Like you're going to hate that process and that system. It's taking on too many people at once. We would normally encourage you to start with like an executive admin, build that up over 60 days, and then let's see where that takes you time back. And as you get time back, which is the whole point of this exercise, is then you go find another person to grow your business. We had an example where somebody came in and runs a huge Airbnb company, and his two VAs found 4 charges of penalties of like having animals in the house or whatever the story was, and it was they failed to invoice at $6,000. Well, that one error that they caught just paid for that person's salary, right, for a year. So just thinking differently like that, right? Like, are you missing invoice opportunities? Are you overwhelmed? Are you missing prospecting opportunities, right? There's a lot of stuff out there that with time and leverage, and like Liz said, what are you not doing that you should be doing because you're in overwhelm? Those are great tasks to be able to talk about.
Even just like sending gifts, Etsy is such an easy thing to do, is to send a little gift, and my credit card information is all logged in there. They've just got to go and send the gift. And sometimes it's like something that's on your task list for weeks, and you're like, I should go send a thank you gift to so-and-so, and you just never do it because there's so many other things that get bogged down. I also have automation in my CRM where when people do something, it sends my admin an email to go do the thing that needs to be done. Like I actually don't even get any of the emails. It just happens without me. And so there's just all these little things. I call it the death by the 5-minute tasks, where you're like, oh, well, that will only take me 5 minutes. And now you've 5-minuted away your life because you're not doing the things that you should be doing. You're doing the things that just have to get done, but they're not going to move the needle in your business.
Yeah. It's the got a minute people method.
Yep. Does anyone have any other questions before we jump off? And then, like I said, there's 2 links. You have one of them in your email. You'll get the other one soon, but it's to book a call. Like he said, it's not a hard sales call or they're going to beat you over the head. It's just like, hey, what do you need a VA for? Like, can we actually fulfill that? Or what type of VA do you need most in your business? And that's where they come in. They've sourced hundreds and thousands of virtual assistants. In fact, their very first, not the very first, but one of their very first virtual assistants named Shireen, she actually started as just an admin type person and worked her way up to CEO of the Philippines.
Yeah, boots on the ground in the Philippines that just work for SphereRocket. So we have quite the presence there. We're not just shopping them from the US like we're blindly picking people. We literally have a recruiting department, a fulfillment department, 100, I'd say at 150, I'm mistaken, it's 110 Filipinos in our company model. Not necessarily that we farm out to you, but they work specifically for SphereRocket. So,
yep. And then, like I said, if you want all those tools and all those SOPs, then the link is there as well. And both of those links will get put in your email as well. So before we jump off, one last time, does anybody have any questions? And we will let you get back to your Monday and having a fun
I would have a question.
St. Patrick's Day. Yes.
Hey, Liz, good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Wanted to ask about if you actually are working with the VA and you use the company before. Obviously, there are some written agreements protecting the party who placed the VA for you. How would you go about sticking with that VA but going direct, or would you say most of the people have to start over and hire somebody else?
so are you saying you have an existing VA, right?
Yep.
And you would maybe look at another VA opportunity, or give me some clarity on that? I can at least speak from SphereRocket's point of view.
So let's say you guys placed one, right? And I pay the fee to you, and they pay the fee, and you pay the fee or the pay to the Filipino-based person.
Mhm.
So in this case, let's say I do have a VA, right? And I'm paying a different company and they pay them. How would I be able to go? Because the costs you're talking about are cost cutting or beneficial than what I'm paying,
Mhm.
right? So how would you suggest going?
That's a great
keeping the same
question.
person, or
Yeah.
do you go and figure out how to hire a new one, train them?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, because we don't know the contract obligations that your VA is under with that company, of course, we wouldn't necessarily just say, like, sure, come on over to Sphere Rocket. We want to be obviously ethical and would never want to put your VA in a legal dilemma. So obviously that would be one thing you would want to look at with your VA. They could come over and work for us because we do coaching. Each of your VAs gets a CSM, and I could go on and on to evolve a one-off conversation, Peter, for sure. Just I don't want to just say like, oh yeah, sure, dump them and come over to us, just because you would be having to start a little bit over again, and I wouldn't want to do that to you without obviously a further conversation to see what would make the most sense for you and your business model and the current VA that you have.
Mark Brown asked how pay is handled. Obviously, there's like different packages depending on how many VAs you're getting, but what we like about Sphere Rocket is we actually have the contract with our VA personally, and we pay our VA directly. So yes, we pay Sphere Rocket to source our VAs for the training and for the support. And if that VA doesn't work out, we can get a replacement VA. And if we want to hire more VAs, we've got that connection already set. But we like to be able to pay our VA directly. But then also, if we give them a bonus, we have the freedom to do that for performance pay. We actually don't typically give our VAs raises very often, but we give them bonuses a lot based off of performance. And so if you're going through another company where they pay the VA because you're paying the company, so anytime you want to try to give a bonus, it's very difficult, and that company goes and takes some of that bonus because you're now paying them more. Having that direct relationship is very similar to having an employee versus having somebody else coming into your business.
Yeah, the traditional model is very much a flat fee, and that's maybe what Peter was talking about. Hey, you owe me $1,500. I'll make sure your VA gets paid. You just month. There's no transparency in that. You have no idea what you're paying for and how much you're paying for. I'm not saying that is Peter's model, but it could be. That's a traditional model. We're very transparent. We go, this is what you pay us, and here's all benefits, and I will encourage you to go to our consultation call so they can customize a solution for you. I don't want to spend the time today necessarily doing that because of how much time we have not left. And then also what you're going to want to pay the VA. So when we bring them into interview, they're going to negotiate with you just like you do in the US. Hey, cool. You negotiate that out on the interview. And all what it is, you have a price you pay us for all the monthly benefit we give you, which is not, I'll get there with you. Okay. And that's why it's not scalable. The 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, nobody wants to pay $8,000 for 4 VAs. We have a very friendly scale. I'll tease you with that. So,
which is why I'm hiring another VA pretty soon.
Exactly. Cool.
So, and then the contract vary depending on end up working out with Sphere Rocket. So, you know,
talk with our consultants on that. They can have a good conversation about what you're looking for. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rick. I think you had a question, Rick.
Yeah, so Liz, you always have the ability to like find me online whenever I'm looking for something. You must be hacked into my computer or my conversation. So we've been talking about VAs for a while. My wife actually used to do VA type work for people, and she's basically like running operations and stuff like that now. So we have 3 different companies. And so if I needed a VA, like I know you talked about possibly getting one person at one time, right? I mean, is it ideal for me to have a VA that can kind of like jump from company to company to company, like as those tasks are needed?
I think as long as you keep them in that lane of specialty, right? It doesn't matter if you're an executive admin for a doctor's office, a roofing company, and a plumber. Yeah, they'll need a little bit of background knowledge on each of those industries necessarily. They're just doing invoicing. They can do that across multiple companies. If you wanted them to be a video editor or a high-ticket website designer and an EA, that probably wouldn't work out so well.
Okay, so just going back to finding the task of what's needed and going from there. Okay. That makes sense.
Like my virtual assistant does social media for ROI Builder and social media for Liz Chisholm Coaching. So both of it's social media, but it's not from one company. It's 2 separate companies.
Okay.
So as long as they're in that lane and they can kind of keep their head wrapped in that lane. And then I have content bots for both of those. So that way, if they're creating a post for ROI Builder, all of that information is fed into that. So that way it's brand specific. And then they use this bot for this. So that way they can bounce back and forth, and we just label things either ROI or LCC. So that way we know which one we're going to.
Makes sense. And we kind of do that with our field already. I do like a weekly agenda on Sundays, and it's just like for this company, this jobs, this business, you know what I mean? And they just I'll do whatever. So maybe it'd probably be a couple of the same things. Well, cool. Sounds like answers some questions. Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if there are no other questions, then just look at your email for all the links that we talked about today. And if you have any additional questions, you can always just jump on that call with Sphere Rocket and ask them directly, or you can just reach out and email me. Obviously, you know that I'm around and respond to emails, or maybe it's my VA. You'll never know. So with that, I will wish you all a wonderful day. And then also don't forget to check your junk mail if you don't see the email. I'll just double check that, and have a wonderful day. And we'll see you on the next call if there is another one that we do.
Thanks for letting me join. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks.
See you.